Welcome back to Sprig River Homestead. As you can see, I'm in the greenhouse today getting ready to start some seeds. And so today on Top 5 Tuesday, we're going to answer your top 5 questions about seed starting. So the first question we see the most and get asked the most is, when should I start my seed? This is going to depend a lot on where you live and what you're planting. So on the back of every seed packet, if you look on the back, it's got all the information on the back here. So for like tomatoes, it'll tell you start 6 to 8 weeks before your last date of frost. So what you want to find out is, 1, what zone you're in, and 2, what your average last frost date is. And then backtrack from there. 6 to 8 weeks is when you're going to start those. Now for me, I have a really short gardening season, and there's a lot of stuff that they actually don't recommend that we grow here because of the shortness of our season. So what I do is I figure out when I want them to harvest, and I back it all the way up, and I start my seed then. So there's 2 ways to do it, but always, always, always start with your zone, your last frost date, and look on the back of your packet for that information. So the next question we get is, what kind of soil do I use? There's a lot of good recipes online for homemade potting mix. Now, I don't actually use that, but if you've got time and want to do that, go ahead and look into it. Me personally, I like to use, I don't know if you can see that, it's the seedling mix from Black Gold. I really like the consistency of it. It holds water really well, but doesn't stay overly damp. I've used the Miracle Grow seed starting mix. I have mixed emotions about it, mostly because I have mixed emotions about the Miracle Grow company. There's a number of things you can do. Burpee this year has a brick that you soak in water, and I believe it's a coconut fiber. I actually bought one but haven't used it yet, so I can't really make a recommendation on it. What you do want to avoid is potting mix. You actually want to try and use an actual seed starting mix. Most of this is because most of your potting mix has fertilizer in it, which is going to make your seedlings get super, super leggy and explode, which is a bad thing. The other thing is, it tends to be bigger particles, so I've had harder times trying to get my seeds to start in it. Like I said, potting or seed starting mix, very, very fine, great stuff for all of your seeds, and that's my recommendation. Okay, so the next big question is, what kind of pots should I be planting my stuff in? Sky's the limit. I have in years past used plastic solo cups, the red plastic cups, poke some holes in the bottom of them. You can get some cheap little plastic pots from Dollar Tree. I've used toilet paper tubes. Just fold the backs in. You can, if you've bought plants in the last couple years, we save all of our trays. So I reuse these guys every single year. Another option, Jiffy makes a million of these things. I like the 72 cell flat. They're not huge, so you find yourself transplanting a lot out of these. But they're good starts. They're very compact. They have the little clear greenhouse topper to them. As far as that goes, I mean, you can literally pot in anything. I know people who use big trays that they get from like the dollar store, like cooking trays. Poke a few holes in them for drainage, and go ahead and seed your stuff in them. It just really depends. It kind of depends on if you want to double handle them. Like with my tomatoes, I start them in the 72 flat, and then I have to transfer them into bigger stuff as we go. You can also do just a flat, overseed, thin, and repot from there. Depends on what method you want to use. But for the starter gardener that's never done this before, I would probably recommend something like the 72 hole, and just go with that with the consistency. Okay, so the next question we get is, do you need green grow lights? Now, if you've been following along with us, you've seen Kanan mention it in some of the updates. We've talked about the fact that we use grow lights. The answer is no, you don't have to. If you've got a really sunny window, you can do that. I know of plenty of people who use the standard T5 garage lights, just regular fluorescent lights. We don't, because the fluorescent lights actually draw more power than the LEDs that we use. So it kind of depends on your power situation. if you're starting out of a sunny window, just keep in mind that having not enough light will cause some of your seedlings to get really leggy. So if your last frost date is in March or May or whatever, and you're starting really, really early, you may not have enough sunlight. To get a good growth rate on your seedlings, you really need at least 12 hours. The recommended is 12 to 16. So if you're growing in a window, keep in mind the length of day that you have. And you may have to supplement from there depending on what your day situation is. Okay, so the last question is, do I have to pre-start everything? No. Lots of stuff can go straight into the garden. Your greens usually go straight in the garden. Peas, if you wait long enough, your beans can go in. Kohlrabi, cabbages, I've had 50-50 with them germinating outside. Tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, that sort of thing really needs to be pre-started. If you're somewhere like we grew down in Mississippi, I grew cayenne peppers and jalapeno peppers and tomatoes right from seed. So it depends kind of on your length of growth season, but for most of the country, you're probably going to have to start those items. Okra is another one that, depending on your season, you might want to go ahead and pre-start. But it really depends on you. A lot of stuff will transplant. So if you want a good start to the garden, if you're doing succession planting and maybe you want to get some stuff going right now, lots and lots of stuff will transplant into the garden. Just make sure that you are hardening off those seedlings and not just taking them straight from the house to the garden, because it'll send them into shock and it will kill them. So that's it for this week on your Top 5 Homesteader Question Tuesday. If you have other questions about starting seeds, feel free to go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'm going to have a seed starting video coming up because I've had a lot of questions about water use and depth and everything else. So we are going to have a video coming up, and stay tuned, I guess, from Sprecher Homestead. I'll see you next time.